Hello, friends, and welcome to the Happy Half Hour. Still happy despite the result of the game because we, at the Happy Half Hour, do not let temporal events determine our outlooks on life. This is a process-based podcast, friends, and that's why we're still happy.
Happiness is what you make in the world.
Happiness is also what's in that bottle. And this episode of the Happy Half Hour continues to be brought to you by our friends at Deep Eddy, even though you've missed the deadline for the Sweet Sip Sweepstakes.
Yeah.
Good luck to all who entered, and may you be one of the 5 lucky winners who will join us here at the New Orleans game for all the fabulous prizes that we've outlined over the last couple weeks. Now the Deep Eddy's just for enjoying. And I'm not going to lie to you, friends. I may have had a glass of it when I got home last night.
Right.
It was that kind of day for me and the Carolina
There was a lot
Panthers.
of Deep Eddies flowing
yesterday.
yesterday.
You do what you do. Here's what I believe about this game.
Tell me.
I believe that this game was such a weirdo, that this game was such an oddball, that this game was such an outlier in so many ways. It's kind of easy for me to put a fence around it and consider it part of another season altogether because there were so many things that happened during a 40-9 loss to the Buffalo Bills. There, I said it once. I'm contractually obligated to do that. Now it's over with, and I never have to speak of it again. But there were so many things that happened that were so out of character that it just seems like I don't know that it's the kind of thing you build trends upon simply because we hadn't seen them at all this year. We saw James Cook go for 216, breaking a Panthers franchise record for an individual rusher. We saw Andy Dalton sacked 7 times. Panthers hadn't given up more than 3 in a game all year. They hadn't given up, 131 yards rushing in
over the last 3
over the last 3 games.
That was
combined.
even math I was able to do in my head because it was so simple.
That's right. That's the kind we like the best. So there were so many screwball things happen during that game that it's easy for me to just kind of put a pin in it, stick it over there, and not consider it part of the greater whole.
Right, exactly. You and I were talking before we started. Like 2 years ago, that's a game we might would have expected. This year, especially over the past calendar year, I would say that felt like an anomaly. You kind of felt it starting to snowball early on, and when a game like that starts to snowball against a team that is as good as the Buffalo Bills, it's hard to kind of get it back. We've seen the Panthers make comebacks this year, even, but it did finally reach a point where you kind of realized, like, okay, this is going to be a weird one. This one's just going to get out of hand. Even at halftime, when it was still in hand, it felt weird. I ran into our friend of ours, Catherine Fitzgerald, who used to cover this team down here, but now covers the Bills. As she saw me, and she kind of grinned, and she said, "This is a weird one. This is going to be a weird one."
Yeah, and Fitz is well qualified to comment on weird ones. She is from the University of North Carolina and also covered the Arizona Cardinals before making her way to the Buffalo Bills. So, yeah, it was strange and unusual. There were moments there going into the end of the first half when I was like, okay, if this game is 12-6 at halftime, which it very nearly was, that's like normal football. And I've told a couple of people today, just walking the halls here, was that game yesterday an abject disaster? It was. It's Tell the Truth Monday. There's no getting around it. That was not great, Bob. But are the Carolina Panthers still 4-4? And if you would have offered everybody who walks the halls of this building the opportunity to sign for 4-4 in August, I think you'd have gotten a lot of signatures on that petition.
I think where it kind of really got out of hand is, Buffalo won that middle 8, the last 4 of the first half, the first 4 of the second half. Once they took control, in fact, I want to even say, do you have the scoring pulled up right there? I think they scored in both of those windows, correct?
That's right.
And so once that happened, that's when it really kind of started to feel out of hand. But, do they make a comeback in a game like that later in the year? Who's to say? Like you said, 4-4 at the midway. Derek Brown made the comment yesterday. He said, Canales always divides the season up into quarters. And it's a little tougher to do now that there's 17 games. That math doesn't quite work out. It's like 4 and a quarter of a game.
But I enjoy watching you do long division in my head. So.
4.25s of a game per, and he said, this is now the end of the second quarter. We've seen what we did in that first quarter. You go 1-3. Second quarter, you go 3-1. Now you're sitting here at 4-4, essentially what is halftime. And what is Canales' biggest message that he's preached since he got here? Finish. How do you finish the second half of the season? How do you finish the fourth quarter of the season, which is where a huge chunk of the division games are this year? What does that look like? That's going to be what's really, really important now that you've got a huge sample size of what happens when things go well, what happens when things go wrong. How do you use that to now shape the second half of the season?
Yeah, no doubt. And there are a couple of other particulars about this game I want to get to before I get into my broader thematic concepts about what's happening right now. Yeah, this is going to turn into one of Darin's TED Talks. Brace yourselves, friends. Yesterday was a mess for a couple reasons. Andy Dalton turns it over 3 times. Can't have that. Led to 17 points. Can't offer that kind of benefit of the doubt to a team that doesn't need it. I mean, This is the Buffalo Bills we're talking about. Sean McDermott has lost exactly how many?
No.
Zero games after a bye week in his career as a head coach. We knew Sean was a pretty good coach. That's one of the signs of it. When he's got an opportunity to plan and look at things for a minute, he's always really good at coming up with solutions. He did that on Sunday. The Carolina Panthers were also out of offensive linemen by the end of that game. We were very, very close to seeing the dawning of the left tackle Mitch Evans era. I don't.
You know what? If there's anybody I would trust to step in and do it, it's probably Mitch Evans.
There were very few candidates left on the board at that point. He would have probably gotten drafted. Nobody will cop to that because everybody likes to keep their emergency behind break glass sealed. But, I mean, he was just the qualified pass protector who would probably get stuck in there in that situation. We've seen that a handful of times in the course of the franchise, and usually it's a big pass blocking tight end who draws that duty. But they were out of dudes, you know. Unfortunately, Brady Christensen probably out for the year with a torn Achilles. Canales said that last night, called it a pretty significant one, and Brady – God bless him, has been through a lot in the last couple of years, whether it was a torn biceps early in a season, whether it was a broken ankle the end of 22, whether it was this one. I mean, he's dealt with a lot of stuff, and he's always just bounced back with a positive attitude, and he's the kind of guy you want to have around because he can start in 5 spots. We're still awaiting word on Cade Mays, who left that game early. The center went out with an ankle injury. He said somebody stepped on him, kind of got rolled on. Taylor Moton did not play in the second half and stood and watched it in street clothes. We don't know how Taylor is. Hope everything works out for the best for those people, first and foremost, because this game is brutally tough on human beings, and we saw that with our own 2 eyes yesterday. But we'll see. I mean, Canales didn't have a lot of injury updates on Cade or Taylor or any of those guys. Stay tuned the rest of the week to Panthers.com. As soon as we have that, we'll share it with you. But they were in a bad spot. Yeah. I mean, they were, I say they're in a bad spot. They were down to playing Ike Ekwonu, Damian Lewis, Austin Corbett, Jake Curhan, and Yosh Nijman, 4 of whom they know and trust very well. Jake Curhan is a new name to a lot of people. He has been here for the last 4 weeks. He is also 3-1 as a Carolina Panther, but not a lot of people knew about him. Signed off the Cardinals practice squad a couple weeks ago when some injuries hit, and that's where they're at right now. I mean, they were talking today about guys like Brandon Walton, who's used up his 3 practice squad elevations. He could become part of our life again. All kind of names are going to be bandied about in the next couple of days while they try to find their healthy 8 to go into a game against Green Bay. But that's obviously going to be one of the primary concerns. I mean, part of the 7 sacks has a little something to do with Andy Dalton being a little more pocket-bound, shall we say, than Bryce Young is. And I'm trying to be nice here, Andy. And Andy's turning 38 this week. We want to be kind to him.
Happy birthday, Andy.
And, part of it was you get that many people mixing and matching in, and part of it is Buffalo Bills good at football.
Yeah.
So there was a lot of stuff going on, but that was one of the biggest questions that's going to linger into the coming week is how they put together a unit up front.
Part of that question, too, that's going to be interesting, and this is obviously you don't want to have to deal with injuries of this sort at all, but this is one of the, I guess, better parts that you get to weigh is what do you do with Austin Corbett? Here's a guy that he started the year as the starting center.
That's right.
He has started a game at guard this year.
At left guard, his one game at left guard, which he admitted was a little unusual for him.
I think it was his first time in years doing that since he had been with the Rams. Now, do you put him back at center, or do you trust Nick
Samak?
Samak? I wanted to say Samak.
Nope.
Nick Samak, and put Austin at guard. You know, Austin's versatile enough and talented enough to be able to kind of weigh that. But interested to see what happens there as well.
Yeah, a lot of stuff to be
And of course,
said.
that all depends on what the news is with Cade. We're getting ahead of ourselves.
Yeah, with Cade, with Taylor, we'll see. And all that stuff by Wednesday, we should have a clearer picture on some of that kind of stuff. It usually takes a couple days to get all the testing done on some of these guys. And again, when you have the big traumatic one like Brady, I thought it was very telling. You know, last night in the locker room was talking to Cade, or not Cade, was talking to Cade, but was talking to Ike Ekwonu. Just about the emotional impact of seeing guys like Brady Christensen be carted off, seeing a guy like Taylor Moton, who's meant so much to this organization, leave games and not be able to finish. And Icky was talking about that, and he said, you know, these are guys who's been here for the long haul, seen the ups and downs. It's definitely tough losing some of those guys that are part of the blood and the bricks. And I was just like, ooh. Yeah, I mean, when you realize that these guys are important to this place, but when you hear Ike Ekwonu say that, you understand that bond those guys in that room have because, you know, as he pointed out, there for a little bit they were working with what amounted to the 2022 offensive line, minus Bradley Bozeman, plug in Cade Mays, who was here in 22. But those guys have been together for a long, long time, know each other well. Their kids are friends, the whole 9 yards. So to see those guys go down kind of rattled Icky a little bit in the aftermath. And, you know, it's just that's going to be something that's not easy to overcome. They are fortunate to have a lot of dudes that they know and trust, but there's going to be a lot of, you know, moving parts early in the week. The other good news, that's not good news. The good news was Dave Canales said today Bryce Young's probably going to get out there on Wednesday, try to practice, see if he can go this week. That would be welcome for everyone. Bryce was wandering around today because it's Tuesday, and Bryce Young never goes far from this facility. What day of the week is this?
It's Monday.
My God.
We're telling the truth.
Yeah, it's Tell the Truth Monday. That's right. Man, I've been what? Yeah, that's where we are. That's the kind of game it was, ladies and gentlemen. I've lost an entire day of my life. Bryce was wandering around here on Monday because that's what Bryce Young does. Yes. He's here all the time. But a lot of stuff going on. So hopefully we'll see Bryce out there on the practice field. Let's fast forward to today.
Okay. Monday.
Because today, which is Monday, thank you very much, Monday was a day they kind of flipped that calendar every week. And Dave Canales said a couple of things today that caught everybody's attention. Number one, which is the big obvious one, he said we're going to look at everything, including the way we deploy those running backs.
Yeah.
And that was some red meat in the cage because a lot of people have been talking about the difference between Rico and Chuba. If you look at what Rico did during the 2 weeks Chuba was gone, I mean, 389 rushing and 7.3 per carry.
It's pretty good.
Pretty good. Rico won a Player of the Week, earned a lot of acclaim during that time. And even in the 2 weeks since they've been back, and they've been in this job share where it's about 50-50 alternating possessions, Rico's averaged 5.3 yards per carry to Chuba's 2.5.
Those 5.3, you do that twice, that moves the chains.
There you go. That's good math.
Yeah, thank you.
I like it when you start mathing.
I thought Dave Canales was very honest and open with his answer and said, there's so much that Chuba means to this team, and we appreciate it. Chuba's coming off a 1,000-yard season and a well-earned extension, you know? There's so much that Chuba can do, and he does mean to this team. He had the only touchdown yesterday. And, you know, he still brings so much. But he said, we can't ignore I can't ignore what Rico has been doing. Which is all he's been doing is picking up either 7.3 yards a pop or 5.3 yards a pop.
Either way, a lot of pops.
And you can't ignore that. And that's not to say that one of them is better than the other. A lot of times running backs kind of come and go in waves. You know, they hit a stretch. That was what Chuba did towards the end of last year, you know. He really hit a stretch on the back half of the season last year and was running over people left and right. That's kind of what Rico is doing right now. He's running violent, to use Canales' word. He's running hard. And that if this is going to be a team whose identity is built on the run game, then you have to acknowledge what Rico has been doing in the run game. And that's going to bring about a lot of conversations this week to see, does that timeshare stay the same, or do you start leaning one versus the other? I thought Chuba was very honest about it today as well when he talked. He was like, of course, you hear the narrative, you hear what's being said. Nothing in that room changes.
Nope.
Nothing in the relationships between him and Rico changes. Nothing about how he goes out there and does his work changes. He was basically like, y'all have gotten to know me over the past 4 or 5 years. You see how I work. He's going to still be the first out there at practice. He's going to be the last guy in. Same with game day. He's going to be here as soon as the sun will allow him to come in the door.
Yeah.
And none of that changes. And that's what you want in a leader. And but all of that to say, to go back to to use Canales' words, you can't ignore how well Rico is running right now and how much that can spark a team and spark an offense, really get guys excited to go out there and block, get defense excited to go out there and get the ball back. That's huge to a team that's building and trying to create their identity on the run game.
No doubt. And Rico Dowdle was a big part of, Dave used the phrase today, when we ran our way back into the Miami game.
Yeah.
I mean, when you're down 17-0, we've seen this team a lot of times in the past, just kind of ignore the run game and, oh, God, we're down 17, got to throw it all the time. They just kept handing it to Rico, and it just kept working. And all of a sudden, they author one of the biggest comebacks in franchise history, and then he blows up against his former team, the Cowboys. Right. But that being said, to your point, to do that, you're going to need both of them. And there is no doubt there's going to come a time this year when the Carolina Panthers are going to be really glad Chuba Hubbard's still on this team, because Chuba Hubbard is another one of those bricks in the blood guys around this place. I mean, 1,195 yards, 10 touchdowns last year. They don't go on that run with Bryce Young at quarterback second half of the year without Chuba Hubbard running the way he did. Sure. And listen, maybe it's the dad in me talking. Chuba Hubbard is the poster boy for work ethic around this place. I mean, I've told this story once. I have told it a million times. I will tell it again and again. When Chuba Hubbard realized he was bad at catching footballs, he went out and found him a jugs machine, and they made a regular date of it. And when Xavier Leggett drops a ball that could have led to a game-winning score at Philadelphia last year, the first thing he did was find Chuba Hubbard in a jugs machine. You're paying for that example. Yeah. Chuba Hubbard's willingness to work and to put in the time to get better at the stuff he ain't good at is the reason he is Chuba Hubbard. And when you extend Chuba Hubbard and make him part of the personality of your program, that's what you get. You get that power of example to go with that. And being able to raise his hand and say, this guy's on a heater, I'm going to do whatever it takes to win. Mm-hmm. If anybody thinks Chuba Hubbard's going to pout or stick his lip out and not go 100% for the next couple of weeks if Rico Dowdle's getting more of the carries, they do not know Chuba Hubbard very well.
And also, to your point, this can be good as you get later into the season. Rico even said a couple of weeks ago when Chuba was first coming back, he was like, you've seen the last couple of games, Cowboys and Dolphins, where he got to cramping in the fourth quarter, and he was like, this will be good just to kind of keep us fresh. Mm-hmm. And, Canales mentioned last week on Wednesday, both guys looked super fresh just because they've been able to split them. Even if the cut of carries starts to get a little more weighted towards Rico's side, I think you still see a split. How that split happens is what we'll find out. You'll still see a split, though, just to keep, both guys with their legs underneath them, not having to be cramping in the fourth quarter and spending a couple of days trying to come back from that during the week.
Yep, no doubt. So we'll see how that develops over the course of the week. That's something everybody's going to keep their eye on. But, again, they signed Rico Dowdle this offseason on purpose, so you could have a couple of these guys. So I have no doubt that they're going to continue to use a couple of them. All right, this is my philosophical aside.
Let me buckle in.
Yeah, that's right. Dave Canales, to me, said maybe the most important thing anybody has said this season as it pertains to the Carolina Panthers. And I'm just going to go to my laptop here. He was talking about the leadership council meeting he has with the vets every quarter or so. In addition to doing self-scout, he usually gets together with a couple of the veteran players, the guys who've been other places, the guys who've been here. Chuba had said he was in that meeting. And he talks about where they want to go, what they want to do. And Dave Canales said, and I quote, "Going into this meeting today, there's a sense of an identity. There's a sense of what we look like at our best, and we understand what we're doing, where we're going, what we're getting after, and what's required of it. So there's a confidence that's growing and a knowing of who we are and what our identity can be at its best. Friends, Dave Canales just discovered gold. Because if a football team knows who it is, knows how it wants to win, and knows how to get there, they have done the hard work. Mm-hmm. They have done the stuff that a lot of football teams and a lot of programs and a lot of cultures never quite get to. And the figuring that out 8 weeks into his second season, that is more valuable than any free agent, any trade acquisition, any draft pick they're going to come across with, because knowing what to do and recognizing that out there yesterday afternoon was not it, I mean, that's the most valuable real estate a team can own.
And they talked a lot about that last year, about finding and establishing that identity. And he got asked a few times during last year, have you found it? What is it? And he's like, we're still searching for it. We're still creating it. Now they have it. And there's an argument to be made that they were able to really kind of define it by seeing what it wasn't, which was what happened on the field yesterday against the Bills. And they were able to walk off the field, walk back into the locker room. Because across the 4 wins so far this year, they've all been different. Mm-hmm. They were able to walk off the field yesterday and say, regardless of what commonalities existed in those 4 wins, we're not going to be that. And we're not going to go into a game and let a game develop in that such of a way. And he mentioned, I think later on, it's going to be getting the run defense back to what it has been the past few weeks and running the ball as well on the offensive side.
No doubt.
And so all of that to say, yes, they have finally kind of fine-tuned, defined, and established who they are, what they want to be going forward. And now you've got a blueprint.
That's right. And again, because I'm an old person, I routinely refer to things that happened in the past because that's my currency. This is what I do. But I have said for months, the thing this team is beginning to remind me of the most is the 2002 Carolina Panthers.
Why?
That was John Fox's first year. It was coming on the heels of a 1-15 team, and you knew everything was getting blown up. That 0-2 team came out of the gate hot, based largely on defense, and won 3 games. Then they had a stretch in the middle of the season where they lost 8 in a row. Mainly that team was running out of people. Guys were getting hurt. They didn't have enough to begin with. They knew it was a process. But the tail end of that season, that team goes up to Cleveland and wins an ugly one at Cleveland. I think it was a 13-9 game. It was ridiculous. There were fewer than 25 points scored. I know that. It was just kind of a mess of a game. But they won 4 out of their last 5. And I think anybody who's over the age of about 30 remembers what the 2003 Carolina Panthers did. They went to a Super Bowl. But more so than any of those wins, John Fox talked all the time about tough and smart. And if you ever listen to Dan Morgan, when Dan Morgan's talking about the way he wants to build this team, you'll hear those words creep in. Mm-hmm. It's because they've been drilled into his head from the time he was in his second year in the league. Dan was tough and smart. Dan heard about tough and smart all the time. And so being a part of that culture where that team began to figure out how they were going to win games. The 0-3 team then went out and added a bunch of people to it to help augment what they were able to do. Part of that was, a wide receiver like Ricky Pearl, running back like Stephen Davis to come in and add to what they were able to do and that personality that they had built. But just knowing how you wanted to win a game, having that platform was the biggest thing that team was able to do.
Mm-hmm. And again, to the point now you've got 8 games, 9 games left.
I know.
Woo!
I'll never get – just as in my mind, it's still Tuesday.
Uh-huh.
In my mind, we're still playing 16 games. That last one's like a bonus game that happens somewhere in the twilight zone.
Your loss in the second quarter of games comes against an AFC team. Obviously, you don't ever want to lose, and especially not that way. But you can kind of sit back and go, as an AFC team, Falcons lost yesterday. Tampa won against the Saints, so that was a division game. You're still sitting second in the division. I want to say, well, you're probably a little bit farther behind behind the Bucs now. Mm-hmm. But still sitting second in the division. And kind of just going back to what we said at the top, your fourth quarter of the schedule, the last 4 games, has 3 division games in those last 4. So a lot still in front of you, and if now you know who you are and what you want to be and how you want to win games, then you can really start stacking some stuff.
Yeah, I just love everything about the idea of it. And again, the Carolina Panthers might find themselves in situations coming down the stretch second half of this year where they're not able to implement their vision or play to their personality. And again, these offensive line injuries are going to play into that. I mean, if they're without a lot of the dudes that help create that running game, it's going to be harder to have that same kind of identity. But I think the having of it, knowing you've got a Derek Brown to carry that message into the locker room, knowing you got a Chuba Hubbard who may have some of his toys taken away and may not get as many carries, who is going to be an adult and do what's best for the team. The Carolina Panthers have found something here lately, friends, and that's going to be important as they move forward in this deal. So
makes it exciting to see what happens next.
It does, and what happens next is a trip to Green Bay. I'm assuming you lived in Green Bay. What do they call the citizens of Green Bay? I talked last week about the Buffalites and the Buffalonians. What do you call a citizen of Green Bay?
Cold? I don't know.
That's funny. That's pretty good.
Thanks.
I'll give you that one.
It actually shouldn't be too bad this weekend. First weekend in November, I would guess high 40s, low 50s.
I'm expecting a blizzard.
A blizzard. A friend did text me this morning, and she's like, is it going to be, because she's going to be covering the game as well. She's coming from L.A., where, anything below 72 is cold. She said, is it going to be freezing? And I was like, no, it'll be high 50s. And she's like, so, yeah. It's like,
all right.
no.
Well, listen, no matter what, I've been colder in Green Bay. I was, in fact, there for the 96 NFC Championship game when it was 3 degrees.
I was about to say, my first playoff game there, it was 3 degrees at kickoff.
Yeah, that's no fun. I don't enjoy it, so I'm glad we're going there in early November. We'll get more into Green Bay as we get on about this week. Right now, we got a rainy, cold weekend ahead of us.
It's still Monday.
Still Monday. Still Monday,
raining?
Darin. Darin knows what day it is, I promise. I keep looking at this imaginary watch that I haven't worn on my left arm since baby girl was born about 23 years ago. But here we are. It is, it's raining. It's cold. Stay inside. Stay warm. Stay dry. I'm going to go home.
Like a Harry Potter kind of
I'm going to go home and have some soup. The wife and I made soup this weekend, Italian wedding soup. After making it, we just walked around palming cash to each other as if we were extras in The Godfather. But soup is delightful this time of year. Deep Eddy's delightful any time of year. So thanks to our friends at Deep Eddy. Thanks to you guys for joining us. We will see you here on what day of the week?
Thursday
For the next episode of the Happy Half Hour.